it's 5 minutes after. We'll just start our introductions, and Cosimo, I'll let you go first, seeing how you were our first one on here. I'm going to just go down the list of people, no individual order, and of course, we've got our first meeting and Immersion Cooling Data Center Solutions, what we called it. Maybe we should have called it Immersion/Liquid Cooling and Solutions. So I'll go over our purpose real quick. By the way, this is recorded. And so if anybody wants a copy of the recording, Dalton is on and he will send it to anybody that wants it. And you can take a little snippet out of it and use it for your own purposes. We're all just about building this up. And so the group purpose is just advancing how immersion cooling in general, or liquid cooling, whichever your choice of verbiage is, can be built up. And again, I was telling you, Cosimo, about the formation of the OCP Advanced Cooling Facility Subproject Group. And that was about a week ago. They've now had 2 calls. So if you couldn't think the timing for our group, which we started about a month ago, couldn't be better. The verticals here with the OCP Advanced Cooling Facility Subproject Group, I was on that call yesterday, very much intertwined with what we're talking about. So we are all in the right place right now. And so it couldn't be better. So, but we'll make our introductions. Again, Cosimo, I'll start with you and just tell us a little bit about who you are, your company, and feel free to, talk about your technology. We have no problems here with talking about different technologies.
So yeah, but thank you. First of all, Alison, very briefly, I'm Cosimo Pecchioli. I'm with Alfa Laval. I'm based in San Francisco, and Alfa Laval is a heat exchanger manufacturer, and we have been working in data centers for many years, and we have been actually actively looking at liquid cooling for a couple of years. We have, very briefly, all kind of heat exchanger solutions from, let's say, the size of a cell phone braised to a 32 megawatt heat exchanger in one heat exchanger. And we sell actually a lot of them to data centers. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm glad to be part of this group.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Cyan, you are next on my list. Again, I'm just going to go through the list.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, I'm Cyan. I'm from MNI Materials Limited. We are based in UK. We have our head office in UK and manufacturing sites in 4 locations globally, in US, UK, India, and South Africa. We are a 100-year-old company, primarily focused on high performance electrical and power electronic materials and fluids for over 100 years. Specifically, in terms of ester fluids, we are currently the world's largest manufacturer of dielectric esters. And we have launched this MyVolt brand of fluids a couple of years back. It was specifically for electric vehicle battery thermal management systems initially, and from there we have extended our learnings into the IT systems as well. So I'm in charge of our operations into the data center, crypto mining, edge, high performance computing applications, and I'm really excited to be a part of this group as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Great to always, of course, Cyan and I have had many conversations. So
yeah, yes.
So next is JB, and JB.
Yes, I'm with a little EF&I firm based out of Plano, Texas. We work nationally from Alaska, Hawaii to Puerto Rico. We primarily focus on common systems within telecommunication facilities and data center facilities. So we're very interested in working with immersion on the edge and in data centers, and see what kind of assistance we can provide in the design build aspect of that.
Absolutely. Very hot topic right now, the edge. And so JB actually got to come and look at our containerized edge data center. And so, exciting stuff moving forward. Carlton.
Howdy, Carlton Griffiths, Senior Project Manager for Alcatex, 25 years. I'm responsible for preliminary planning, strategic design and build of data centers and some telco as well, mainly the critical infrastructure. UPSs, generators, distribution, batteries, and that type of stuff. So I'm excited to see which direction this goes as well, as I am I'm familiar with it, and I just can't wait to see how it transforms the entire industry. And I see that it's going to do that. I completely understand the power requirements of how we've been doing it for decades, and it's time for change. Thank you.
Absolutely. Dalton?
Hello, Dalton Griffiths. I am an IT manager at Immersion Edge, and I'm helping with the call today.
Thanks, all. So, Mr. Jim Cohen?
Good morning. I'm Jim Cohen. I'm CEO at Midas Green Technologies and Immersion Edge. Dual hats.
And let's see, Aaron?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aaron Brinkman. I'm one of the team members of Immersion Edge as well. I'm also a project manager with Alcatex. I've been with them for about 10 years now, primarily working on building the most energy efficient data centers that we can. And that's why I'm here on this call today, to kind of soak everything in and see where this technology will take us.
Excellent. David?
Hey, good morning, Allison. Good morning, everybody. Nice to meet you. Thanks for putting together this call. I'm David Allman. I'm the VP of Sales for Telecom at Benning Power Electronics. We make and manufacture backup electrical AC, DC, UPS systems for our customers. I am new to immersion liquid cooling technology. I'm very fascinated with what I've seen so far. So I want to understand the topology a little bit more and find ways, creative and innovative ways that we can provide state-of-the-art, next-generation backup systems to help with your pumps and also your equipment. So glad to be a part of the team, and thanks for inviting me.
Excellent. Absolutely. So excited for you to work with us as well on our containerized solutions. And so Mario.
Hello, my name is Mario Conti. I am the lead thermal engineer for Midas Green Technologies and Immersion Edge, and just happy to be here.
Absolutely. And Tom, last but not least, Tom. So.
Hi, I'm Tom Stone. I am with a company called Thermal Care, and we provide actual cooling systems. And so this would be a good marriage between us and say like the Alpha Laval heat exchanger to provide the cooling source for that liquid to liquid heat exchanger. I'm a little new to immersion cooling. I took over as the national sales manager for Thermal Care in March. Great time to start a sales position job. Allison had actually reached out to connect to me on LinkedIn, and we had a conversation and really kind of piqued my interest, and it really seems like a good fit for Thermal Care Technology, as we do a lot of industry leading things for energy efficiency, which is really seems to be a driving force here. So glad to be part of the discussion and to see how we can best benefit everybody that would be involved from the ground up.
Absolutely. No, thanks so much for all of you guys. So I realize there's only 11 of us, but I don't want that to deter anyone, because if you look at the list, I encourage you to go look at our list of members, and we have one from Tesla, and he wanted to join, so he must have got a little sidetracked, had me send him the dial in, as well as I got a message last night from someone with Microsoft that's part of our group, and he wasn't going to be able to make it either. So again, just to hit on the fact that this topic right now is really where a lot of conversation and a lot of feedback is going back and forth. That introduction of that OCP group that is almost really aligned with what we're talking about just tells you where we're headed in this in the next phase for liquid immersion cooling. It really is exciting, and so I really want input from everyone. If you've got a topic for next month we're going to try to do a meet once a month. Feel free to bring something up. I've got some in the news stuff to go over, but also topics of conversation. We all know the low hanging fruit about immersion cooling, which is 90% less air equals 50% energy. We have sustainability points on not only in the data center but on the edge. So many really great things that we can talk about. What we're trying to talk about is some conversations that we need to get this to the next level, which were brought up in a call Jim and I were on, in regards to how the Uptime Institute is actually addressing immersion cooling and how SLAs play into an immersion cooling data center. A lot of talk this week and last week about TCO, and it seems like everyone was CapEx, OpEx, and all of a sudden now we're talking about TCO. So, which of course is like 1, 2, 3. 1 + 2 = 3, I guess. So really, we are all just we're in an exciting place, and I think it just keeps going up. So if you have any input, please just interrupt me, which I realize is hard because I can talk a lot. I know. But a couple things that I this morning. First of all, the events last week, which I covered, just the fact that there was 3 days worth of events last week about liquid and immersion cooling should be telling us all that, again, this topic is right now. This morning, woke up to my feed saying Doug down under Geo rang the bell on the Australian Stock Exchange. They have open bath, single phase liquid immersion cooling. They're the ones that have that supercomputer called Bubba. That's right in Houston. They also have data centers in Kuala Lumpur and Lumpur. Is that how you say it? Anyway, and London. So one of the neat things is I always like to hear what people are saying is the applications for liquid cooling, immersion cooling. They brought up a couple of new ones I personally hadn't heard, and astrophysics, meteorology, of course, research, kind of that one we've heard about. Bioinformatics, I'm gonna have to look that one up. So just, but I'm assuming that has something to do with, anybody know what that means? Bioinformatics.
It could be the DNA simulation that they run through supercomputers, like for instance now to find a COVID vaccine, they are using supercomputers to run DNA simulations.
That makes sense.
It could be. I'm not sure myself, but
I'm like so nerdy. I have to look it up later. So by the way, also, of course, this actually was last week. Alibaba just opened 3 additional hyperscale data centers in China. And I love their quote too, and whether, one of the world's largest server clusters that are submerged in liquid cooling, keeping the IT hardware cool and reducing energy consumption by 70%. So that is really, just great information to see them doing it and to kind of hear, again, just pushes all of us upward. They are talking about that, I have a typo there. Their PUE is almost equal to 1.0, meaning almost all their energy is used for computing. So of course, that's what we all want to hear. And they plan to build 10 additional hyperscale data centers in the next few years. So very exciting stuff there in the news. So if you guys, anybody else have anything that they want to interject here, anything else that you have heard or would just like to kind of bring up? You are muted, Carl.
Okay, sorry about that. I got to look at all these little icons and all these little buttons here. Discussing how we're going to go to complete liquid immersion, I actually can see something like this happening. But my question is hybrid. So I can't imagine that we're going to be able to put 100% of everything in the data center submerged. So I think we're still going to have a certain amount of air conditioning, environmental protections for equipment that we can't submerge physically. Might be too large, it might be OEM not warrantying it, that type of thing. So I'm curious to see how this changes. but I think that we're still going to be hybrid for a while before we go 100%. Just a
Yeah.
little input there.
I actually agree 100% with Carton. My feeling is that that's the reason why cold plates and backdoor it's gaining traction, because the facility remains the same. So you can have one aisle air cooled and then the next aisle actually with cold plates or chassis based liquid cooling. It remains to be seen for how long this hybrid phase will last, I guess.
Anybody else? I agree with that completely. That's in the past couple of days, all those events, that was very strong kind of takeaway is a hybrid approach. And of course, we also have a member on the group, which is Tim Chambers with Cool DC, and he was on one of those. And
now
that,
the edge,
yeah,
the edge could change, because the edge being smaller and of course decentralized, at that point you cannot have a hybrid solution yet. I mean, if it's a container, it's a container. You cannot have a part of the container air cooled, a part of the container liquid cooled. So probably the edge will push and will any form of liquid cooling. You can have an efficiency which is comparable to an hyperscale, which has always been the biggest challenge of the edge, because the easiest solution is just to slap an air condition in a commercial air conditioning in a container, but the efficiency, I mean, it's horrible.
right.
So that could be a game changer.
Yeah, that's true. And it's actually a very hazardous. It's a hazardous condition. I can't imagine how long you're going to be able to sustain a container without having a lot of maintenance, a lot of hands-on, a lot of people in and out of there. If we submerge everything in the edge, I think it's going to be very robust. All you'll have to do is change firmware and software. All remotely can be done. So I see that too. Good input.
Anybody else? Okay, so we will go on to pretty much, again, trying to, what are the barriers right now for implementing liquid cooling in the data center? And so, getting away from just talking about all the benefits of it and really getting to the meat of how to get this to the next natural progression. So question came up, who and so here it is to you. Who will have the largest impact on lowering the resistance barriers to implementing liquid cooling in the data center? So I gave 3, and then I threw an other in, and actually I have kind of a twofold answer, but please, let's say, Jim, I'm just going to call you out. Why don't you answer that for us? You be first.
I'll say it again.
You're on mute. We cannot hear you.
No, I just unmuted.
Oh.
I said repeat your question.
So the question is up here. So, which I sent out the question, sorry if you didn't see. So who will have the largest impact on lowering the resistance barriers to implement liquid cooling in the data center? And we said Uptime Institute, Green Grid, ASHRAE, other. So who do you think is going to be one of those, big entities that help to push this in lowering the resistance of it?
I'm going to bet that it'd be Green Grid.
Wow.
I mean, the Uptime Institute, they're a little more set in their thinking and ways of doing things in the old school way of doing things, and ASHRAE is the same way. ASHRAE is a little more flexible, in my opinion, than the Uptime Institute, but the Green Grid, they see value in things like this, and I think they'll be the first one.
Yeah. That's good. Anybody else? Let's see, Mario or Carl.
Can I take the other?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to say D, and I'll tell you why. I think that just seeing the history on how the end users and the OEMs have started to change the way they manufacture the architecture of the servers is going to be another push. If we can start getting those manufacturers to change it, we can see a lot more enterprise submerging, because enterprise, I think, is one of your biggest consumers of the power, regardless of whether they're crypto mining, whether they're AI. I don't care what they're doing. I see the data because I'm in the data center industry. The enterprise, with their day-to-day use of servers, that architecture I see needs to change. Once that changes, I think it'll open up to a lot more consumption and a lot more usability of submerged technologies.
Carl, I can't say that they won't change. As you know, we've been working with Dell and Lenovo, et cetera, for a long time, and preaching that they need to build an immersion-friendly server, and it just falls on deaf ears.
No, it falls into their pocketbook. That's where it falls into.
But I agree with Carton. Actually, I think that the end users, the big names, will drive the change. When the AWS, when the Google, the Facebook of the world, Alibaba, of course, will start to implement these. I think that the others will follow.
Right.
I agree, 100%.
Well, you see that Microsoft has their own
Microsoft, yeah, of course,
solutions. They have their own. In fact, I didn't realize, but they have their own open bath single phase solution that they implement in their data centers. So I completely agree. In fact, that's kind of question number 3, Carlton. You brought it up, but right on point there. So Mario, anybody else gonna want to?
Yeah, I wanted to say that. I think it's like, to me, how I see it, it's not maybe one or the other who would make the largest impact, because I think it needs like to drive adoption of something new. There needs to be a concerted efforts from all the stakeholders. So it's difficult, and the work, each one of them, like at least the first 3 which you have mentioned, like in the work these organizations do are all critical in their own way. For example, like ASHRAE can play a role in, like, they have these standards, because standardization, I feel, is very important going forward, although it has a like backside of like it can inhibit innovation to some extent. But if they can have a balance and have some standards in terms of the materials used, or the fluid properties, or in terms of like safety or interoperability, that could be helpful. Also, like I was listening to the webinar last week, and like Uptime Institute shared some results, and also like one of the questions was, do you have something which can benchmark or which can compare air versus immersion? Like coming from a third party always probably makes a big difference in the eyes of the end user. So if they can have some analysis of TCO of data centers under similar conditions with air and with immersion, so these kind of things can probably help. And I was also looking at, like, they have something with they call it tier ready. It's for modular data centers. So this is for uptime. So they have some certification, tier ready certification for modular data centers with air. So if they can have something similar in immersion, probably that would help to gain confidence among the end users and drive this further. So yeah, these are some of the points which I had thought. Yeah,
I agree.
So this organizations, I mean, effectively what they do is statistical analysis to determine, okay, if you do these things and those things, I mean, your data center is going to be up for under this circumstances. And the only way they can do that type of analysis is if there's enough people doing it, there's enough information to base those charts on in those standardizations on. So I'll have to agree with Carlton and Cosimo, where it has to be the older, where the market is going to start using this mostly because of cost. And once there's enough players out there, then Uptime and ASHRAE and Green Grid are going to start looking at it and starts trying to standardize it and come up with the optimal way of doing this and compare user A versus user B, what are the outputs of both of them? What did they do better or worse, and go from there. So I think the market is definitely going to be a driving force in this thing. I mean, we started doing immersion cooling almost a decade ago, and one of the first questions that we always get is, who else is using this? And when we started, pretty much the answer we got is, well, whenever you get your first big customer, will be your second big customer kind of thing. So
yeah.
Cost analysis is key. I mean, case studies, as we start implementing this, we have ours now, we're starting. The more we see of that and the more information we can get out to show the real-time savings that you can get, I think dollars are going to drive it hard. It's really going to drive it home right there. Once we can start comparing and showing just how much we are actually now saving as case study as opposed to theory, there you go. That'll drive it.
Funny because you guys are saying that, and even though I combed through the ASHRAE 9.9 and found a real great little nugget actually towards the end that talked about liquid cooling, and of course I always have a little dance, and so I was gonna actually forgot to include it in this, but it was a pretty cool quote, and I'll save it for next time. But my answer is also other, and I almost added OCP. And I know that, they did a pretty good push out a month or so ago about liquid immersion cooling, but that's exactly where they were headed yesterday, is in case studies. They're actively looking for case studies, seeing who will provide some of their, interjections for case studies, because I think everyone does understand that that's what it's going to take to essentially, you have there's deployments, a lot of them, we talked about a few there earlier. So, and many, many, many more than that. But, it's just going to take more, and it's going to take some case studies. And so you're finally seeing people let go of a little bit of their information, understanding that that's what's going to take to escalate this. So,
well, Allison, somebody you don't have on this call are the bean counters. I would like to sit in that room whenever they're doing their annual budget and their CFO's talking about, well, we have this much of our budget's going to go towards energy costs, towards maintenance programs, things like that. I'd love to be there the day they start showing the savings they're going to incur.
I think that's where other people, they brought up IT. So not only do you have like a barrier right now, knowing the OEMs kind of pulled the cards on some of this, but also having the IT in general be accepting of this new technology, because they are the ones that will also have to, as you said, to weigh into the bean counters and say, this is what I want to use. Yes, I realize I'm asking for something that sounds out of a sci-fi movie, but it's what I want to do, and let me explain to you why. And so a lot of really great things are kind of happening. Mario and Jim and I are working on that very scenario right now to push out showing the differences and why the impacts are. So does anybody else want to order that? Does anybody else want to address the question? That I don't want to leave anybody out.
I just had one quick thing I wanted to add from the actual process cooling side of it. Not necessarily ASHRAE directly, but refrigeration style of cooling. A lot of the temperatures required from the cooling sources for the immersion cooling are outside of the requirement of refrigeration. So you can get away with a traditional cooling tower, or even newer technologies like dry fluid coolers or adiabatic systems. And what those really do is they reduce your energy consumption greatly and reduce your overall operating cost consumption, like water consumption, chemicals, and things like that. Mm-hmm. So in ASHRAE, they would have a little less impact, because now you're talking more, 10% of that, refrigeration or air conditioning. That's still, you're going to be your building refrigeration and air conditioning. The actual cooling of the immersion cooling is now a process load, which is process cooling equipment, which is a totally different realm. And so those two things can almost become separated. And that's very similar to a lot of the applications I do now with injection molders or lasers, they have air conditioning, but then they have process cooling, which is a totally different animal. And you can get into a lot of different solutions that are outside of those governed by the strict and a lot of times inadequate refrigeration and air conditioning protocols. So it gives you a lot more flexibility to create new innovative solutions that way.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of new and innovative solutions on the horizon for sure. So anybody else? I'm going to go into the next question. So we're doing good on our time though. So this one actually, talks just about what we were just talking about, OEMs and R&D budgets for liquid cooling specific solutions, your time estimate for real shift in development, and your density predictions. So somebody take that. Jim, you seem to be an expert kind of all the time. I always look to you, and anything to do with the OEMs predictions.
Unmute. OEMs are coming along slowly. Their budgets depends on what department you're talking to. You know that in the server manufacturers like Lenovo, the OEM group is very pro immersion cooling. The OEM group at Dell is becoming more pro immersion cooling. However, the thermal teams are resistant because most of them are the ones that developed cold plate, liquid to the chip. It's proprietary. They're defensive of their positions, etc. But those that are open to testing it, like the ones that we've already mentioned, they're the ones that are beginning to see the light. The thermal team at Lenovo has actually made the statement that there's room in this for everybody, and they can't seem to find anything wrong with liquid immersion cooling. And getting them to move their budgets towards developing things for immersion cooling is a very slow process, and we've been working at it from bottom up, but now we're starting to work at it from top down, and we're getting a little traction.
Right.
And I think that real shift is still a year or two away.
Wow. So JB, I got a question for you. So JB's on the telecom side, and very interested in kind of looking what we're doing, not only for equipment, such as, CPU, GPU type equipment, but also what do you think in regards to some of the Qualcomm and some of the other equipment? And have you heard anyone talk about other opportunities for immersion cooling? Of course, I know we all talk about batteries. Of course, Cyan, you can maybe speak to the battery side for a hot minute about how we're looking at trying to potentially tackle that as well. But do you have any input about what you think maybe is on the horizon in the telecom side?
Well, the biggest obstacle is the multitude of OEMs that are deployed within a telecom facility. I think someone mentioned that OEMs are coming on board, but it's slow. And in a pizza box or server application such as a data center and stuff, they're deploying, a limited amount of products. But again, on the telecom side, you got so many different platforms with so many different OEMs that's going to be the biggest hurdle in a 5G deployment, the backbone in an MSO. I think where we may be able to gain some ground is actually, we've talked about it a little bit, is on the edge. I know there's a lot of conversation on here about the data center, but the edge, the amount of dense computing that's going to be required for IoT, AI, autonomous vehicles and things like that out there on the edge. I think that's really where the opportunity is going to come from on the telecommunication side, because the BTSs and things like that are deployed there at the cell sites, remote facilities, is a lot less diverse than what you find in the MSOs. So I think that's really where I'm going to try to dig into and see where those synergies are with that, because like someone said earlier, trying to cool a very high dense computing solution out there on the edge, you're going to encounter so many problems trying to cool it in the traditional way.
Yeah.
All roads lead to a better cooling solution, and I think everyone on this call agrees that at this time there's really not a better solution than immersion.
Right. I think JB, we're going to task you. JB is the one that told me about the bugs. So of course we didn't talk about sustainability on the edge, but we're involved with the Telecommunication Industry Association, and that's been a really big thread of conversation about sustainability on the edge, whether that has to do with outside elements. It's not a clean room atmosphere. It's very hazard prone, deployment for many different reasons. Vibration, the systems and the liquid cooling and specifically immersion cooling really protects the equipment from all that. So we'll task JB with getting us some pictures of some horror stories he's seen inside some of these, in some of these
invasion of the crickets, and yeah.
Allison, can I add something to that?
Of course.
My background also is in telecommunications. Don't hold it against me. I worked for AT&T for a few years in the networking group. But I know exactly what they're talking about, and we're facing that with one of our customers right now who are real concerned about using underutilized space to put micro data centers on the edge. And we've talked about putting them in the parking lots, parking garages of office buildings and hotels and things of that nature. And somebody said, what about bugs?
Yeah.
Well, they won't bother anything that's in the immersion, but you got to get wires in and out of the tanks. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have to go in conduit to keep protect them a little bit from the bugs. But we know, because we left one in our immersion tank in Austin, crickets can't swim in dielectric. We found one in our tank and it was just dead laying there, and we left it there for a long time, telling people that it was a proven insect control method.
Add to the reasons to use it. Does anybody else have anything else to add before I go to our last question, or anybody?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I completely agree with Jim and JB. In my opinion, if we put on a time scale, I also believe that probably mass adoption or scale would be achieved first in edge applications, as Jim and JB mentioned, because power density, space constraints, and operational efficiencies would probably be the key drivers, and where immersion cooling seems to be a perfect solution for all these problems. And it is estimated that by 2025, as reading some articles, it is estimated that by 2025 there would be 7.5 million micro edge data centers, data center deployments. So Jim mentioned, 1 to 2 years, I was going to say the same thing. It probably in the next 2 to 3 years, we should see some large scale deployments of immersion cooling systems for edge applications. And I think JB mentioned this, like all these things, IoT or like digital gaming, these things driving the need, but also like if you look it from the other side, edge applications or edge computing systems would drive these as well. So it is estimated that like edge would be a catalyst for almost $1.2 trillion into these new kind of businesses like IoT or e-commerce, security technologies, blockchain. So I think, yeah, I completely agree. And in other thing, like in terms of hyperscale, I think the driver would be more from a sustainable point of view, wherein we see the all the big tech companies, they claim to be carbon neutral or even carbon negative by 2030, 2050. All the large companies, in fact, they have some carbon neutral targets by 2050. So that would probably, although the densities are low, like probably it's around 8 kilowatt per rack, so that may not be a driver for hyperscale applications, but I think sustainability would play a major role in driving this into the driving immersion cooling into hyperscale sector.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
yeah, I wanted
I
to
think
say this. Yes.
next topic might be, you know, some sustainability questions. So we'll explore and dive deeper into that. See, did you see what I did there? Dive deeper. So see, no one's laughing.
Yes.
We'll immerse ourselves into it.
Immersion cooling jokes. Oh, look, see, look, I did it again over there. So deep dive, pun intended. So last question. What steps do you feel will help to eliminate the lack of standardizations for liquid cooling on the facility side of data center other than what's been discussed? I know we've talked about a lot. So, and I think we all pretty much have a common agreement that the edge is probably where the first proof of concepts are going to come out of. Some of the first case studies are going to come out. Although, you know, you see again a lot of immersion cooling data centers out there, a lot of different kind of liquid cooling data center deployments out there. So I don't think we should take away from that. I think that all of us realize that maybe to really get it escalated, the edge, that's where the edge plays, because there's so many problems on the edge that specifically immersion cooling fixes. So, you know, you just can keep on just talking about them, you know, different, you know, you could take all day to discuss all the benefits. So anybody have anything that we haven't talked about, maybe even some ideas for the next call that you feel would help, you know, to start the standardization process?
I simply think that
I have a comment. What I feel is going to help what I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis from the engineers is not only what they're planning for, which is already taxed their network, is they're having to deal with on a more day-to-day basis of what they're not planning for. Is equipment that's being jammed down their throat, which hasn't been spec'd out or planned for on the cooling side. So I believe these opportunities are going to be generated from this. And we still don't truly understand the demands of what the 5G, everybody talks about the gaming industry and the latency, the medical industry, the self-driving. These are going to have a real impact on, like Cosimo said, the end customers who are dealing and supplying these solutions. So I believe the focus should be putting on some niche solutions that may not be ideal or perfect yet at this point. And when these opportunities present themselves, some of my customers will be more receptive, and that was going to help eliminate some of the standardization needs, because the demand is going to be real. They're going to have deadlines that they're going to have to meet, and this is where we can capitalize on it as a team.
Completely agree. Future proof. We always say that these solutions are future proof, and you know, we got reached out to by somebody that was doing some smart city initiatives, and that there's been multiple people reach out on that. So I'm not talking about just one person. And they were explaining that they were, you know, fitting 7 racks in this micro data center. That's all they could fit, 270 kW. And he was already concerned because that's maxing that out. There is no room for any kind of future growth. And he was kind of stuck where he was at and pretty much had to deploy this way for now. So we'll come back to me in a year when you have, you know, you've overgrown your capacity, because what are you going to do? Replace that whole micro data center with a new one? I mean, what, you know, so that's why I 100% agree with you, David. It's a future-proof mentality, for sure. Anybody else?
I liken the submersion technology to the block and tackle of data centers. Now, when I say block leverage, in other words, a pound is a pound. Now, we learned using a block that we can make that pound feel like a half a pound, so we've become more efficient. The immersion technology I liken to that because my whole life I've had to deal with a watt. And a watt is a watt no matter what voltage you throw at it, no matter what you do with it, it's always a watt. And it's always heat displacement. So we've always had to deal with that watt no matter how we applied it. So immersion technology is like the block and tackle to this technology. It's going to make us cool that watt much more efficiently and so exponentially that it's going to change the world. I really think it is.
Yeah. Changing the world one, you know, webinar at a time. So, yeah.
One tank at a time.
Anybody else? Jim, did you have something you want to throw in there? Anybody? Cosmo? I thought I heard.
Yeah, I look at this in a little different light. But of course, we've been battling this for 10 years. And when we started, people would say, we'd tell them what we did, and they'd say, "You do what?" Because something down deep in their lizard brain says you don't put electronics in a liquid. Now it's come to where when we tell somebody what we do, they go, "Oh, I've heard of that." It's a matter of education and patience to change the standardization. And part of the problem is who to educate.
Right.
Because there are people that are very, very, very protective of their core data. You don't mess with my job by messing with my data. If it's not tried, true, and traditional, right, down to the same color of Cat 6 cable, they don't want it in their data center.
Right.
And it's a matter of being able to educate a broad spectrum from who you're going to go talk to, the CEO, the CFO. You get pushback when you go over the IT guy's head or the COO's head. But if you go to the COO, you're going to get pushback from the CFO. Or if you go down to the data center manager who's hands-on every day, he'll tell you, I have no control over this.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about this. So I think it's a matter of education to change the standardization, and that's a slow process. And one of the best ways to do it is to have installed facilities to point to. And there are becoming more and more of those all the time.
I agree.
Case studies, examples.
Having these conversations where we're talking about it, we're pushing it out. Of course, the events last week, all of that is the education. I agree completely, that's needed, but you need an innovative spirit out of, you know, the top 3 people that are the decision makers to understand and have a passion and not have fear for the unknown. Because again, Carlton has always said with architects, you know, they always want what helps them sleep at night. And so we get it. And the unknown is scary. And this is what we are trying to do, is break those barriers, find the innovative spirits out there that are willing to take the chance and help this go to the natural next steps. Because you can't talk about energy efficiency in the data center. You can't talk about edge deployments for high density without, you know, really understanding how you're going to do that. And liquid cooling.
And having an example, yes.
Yeah, without having that.
You're a good example, Allison. You're a very good example. How long has it taken you to become a, quote, industry expert in immersion cooling?
Well, let's see, I met you in 2014. So,
Yes.
but, you know, realistically, you know, very immersed in this and just understanding and being, you know, it's actually very, you know, I always say it helped to open up my mind to explore other things with immersion cooling. And I am a super fan and I am a, very much a, you know, prophet of this technology to the masses. And so acceptance is a
A year
big
ago, you would not have undertaken these webinars.
Oh, heavens, no.
But now,
Well, like Allison said, you get set in your ways. I've been in the data center industry so long. You build things and you design things that are so, that keep you comfortable,
Yeah.
that
Right.
let you sleep, as I said.
and
so
we're moving the furniture.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Rearranging.
Anybody else?
Open-minded.
Cosimo, I think did you try to speak up or did I?
Cosmo had to leave.
Oh, he did? Oh, darn. Okay.
He sent a message, chat message to everybody,
Oh.
and he had to leave.
I can't see the chats, you know, it's really weird when you share your screen. So does anybody else, so I really, obviously I've taken, you know, 50 minutes of everyone's time and I'm so thankful for you guys sharing your time with me. I know how busy it is these days, but I truly think that, you know, just open discussion and lifting us up and I will share this record session with you so you can take it and push it out, do whatever you want. I would absolutely love to get everyone's input on topic discussions for our next call, and we'll just, I mean, we'll do a monthly call. I don't, you know, want to drive everyone crazy with information, but you know, we can share ideas on the thread, and I don't know if anybody wants to do a WhatsApp thing. If you're not already on that, we can talk about stuff too. I'm on WhatsApp. I know most of all of us are on WhatsApp. Even Cyan and I are connected on WhatsApp too.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Cosimo is back. Sorry, there he is. And so Cosimo, are you back? I think he's back. So, but if you guys have anybody else have any other things they want to mention, and feel free again to start to suggest some topics for next time. And also share on the group. I believe you can share on the group, you know, anything you want to. So please feel free to do that. I don't want to be the only one sharing stuff. I really encourage you guys to share that. You know, we've got some really great group members, and I think it could only grow from there. And so
I guess I rejoined at the end of the call. I'm sorry, guys.
You're fine. Jim said, you said, well, we were all saying, you know, if you have anything else like to talk about, or just, you know, everyone kind of closing discussions. I've almost taken an hour of everyone's time and I really want to appreciate it, but feel free to suggest something, post on the member, but I'll let you, you know, you've got anything else to add, we'd love to have your input too.
Yep. If you post the recording of the call, I will look the part that I missed, and I'll yep.
Sounds great. All right. Anybody else have anything?
So there's a place where we can suggest topics for next
Yes,
time?
just on the
All
group.
right, because I'm anxious.
Good deal. Just suggest it on the group, and I love the discussion, and so thank you guys for joining. Again, I always love this old, it takes a village, and I really believe that it does. It takes a village, especially when you are trying to change mindsets, when you're trying to change opinions that are, you know, I love this. It's not your grandpa's data center anymore, you know, and I kind of, you know,
We're the village people.
Yeah. Oh, are we the village people? Okay, fine. Yeah, we could be the village people. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you very much,
Thanks a lot.
everyone. Yeah.
Bye bye.
All right.
Bye.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.